Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh. One or two more people might join, but this might be it too. We can get started. Welcome to this week's community meeting. We don't have too many new items on the agenda, but we have plenty of time to discuss any framework updates or summit updates, since those are kind of the two ongoing things that we've got going on right now. And also, there's time, from OpenJS's point of view, like I know you guys have been doing a lot of work on kind of our graduation, our project graduation too. So if you want to discuss any of that, we definitely can. My dog just got something, so I'm gonna have to be right back. One sec. Sorry about that. Okay, so on the summit, the main update for this month is that we've got registration now open. So we've got a link here where you can go and register for the event in London. It's an in-person event. It's open to everyone. Definitely geared towards collaborators, contributors to all of our different frameworks across OpenVis. So, if you haven't already, definitely register. I'd love to see everyone there that can make it. And also, we have submissions for sessions open until around July 5th. So if you have an idea for a workshop or a talk or like a discussion, even like a kind of a fireside thing, or just it's going to be a pretty small group of people. So if you want to have like a talk, go ahead and submit your idea to here. We're going to be taking a look at them as they come in and building up our agenda. That's it from the summit side. We also have some movement on OpenJS, and Kylie have been helping us develop the designs for the summit, the t-shirts and graphics. That's still kind of TBD. But happy to share updates there once we have them. Are there any questions regarding the summit or discussion topics that anyone has? Okay, moving on. Which brings us to frameworks. There's, as far as I know, there aren't any updates to our slides, but actually, I guess I should ask, are there any updates to these slides since this was put up today?
No, from me.
All right. Then we could do a more open discussion. Are there any open discussions or kind of updates that anyone wants to give on any frameworks?
I mean, I made a bunch of updates, I guess 2 meetings ago that we never got time for. So I guess I gave up a little bit, but well, I've been really busy the last couple of weeks, so I haven't been able to pay too much attention. I know we had lots of progress on the on deck, getting the there's PRs up on the aggregating layers, so that's good. And we still have.
I've been busy too, but I'm hoping I can incorporate all the comments this weekend and get them landed. We did promise to land them for 9.0. If we are not doing the big Luma change soon, we could push that to 9.2 and just do 9.1 with all the less disruptive updates.
Yeah, if we have enough to justify that, then why not?
Yeah, I likewise haven't had much time, more because I was off on vacation rather than being busy. But the bit that I want to kind of move forward with is the UBOs. So I think there we need to. I want to discuss this a bit more with Xiaoxin, perhaps.
Yeah, I owe you a code review.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think once we have an approach that's going to be hopefully a lot of just, similar PRs copy pasting, but I think it made a good point that the approach I had was easy to understand but very verbose.
All right.
I made some progress on the porting of Hammer.js into Mjolnir. It's a lot of code, but in Hammer, it was last updated 8 years ago, so there were a lot of like IE10 polyfills and all that stuff that's not really needed by anyone these days. So it should significantly trim down the size of that library.
That's great. Is there any other updates on Deck or Luma, or should we move on? Right. So yeah, I'm trying to pull together LoadersGL 4.3. There's we have now client-side vector tiling as part of this, and it's compatible as it will basically, it more or less enables you to open a GeoJSON file in a vector tile layer.
Does it do tiling in real time of a GeoJSON? So is that what that means, or what's the mechanism?
Yeah, it tiles it on yeah, exactly. It tiles it on the client. So so the idea is you have a really big table. You try to upload that entire table into the GPU. It's just going to be too much. It's either, crashes the tab, or it's just too slow to render, that many vertices for the GPU. In that case, client-side vector tiling is pretty cool, because then you can just, instead of rendering a GeoJSON, instead of rendering with a tabular layer, right, like a GeoJSON layer, which renders the entire table on the GPU, you can just, add this table tile source and connect it to a vector tile layer.
So is that the same as the MVT loader? So are we connecting it to an MVT layer, or what is it? What would actually render it?
Yeah, so exactly. There is so in LoadersGL, I have a layer which I'm moving to DeckGL community, which is a tile source layer. And so that depending on the tile source, if the tile source uses because the MVT layer has very strict expectations on the coordinate systems and stuff like that. So if all the stars align, it renders with an MVT layer. But if it doesn't, if it's a different coordinate system, or if it's images, then it renders with a normal tile layer. So it can handle, tile sources that are images. It can handle, tile sources that are, a little bit differently structured. And it can handle, it can obviously handle PM tiles and so on, but it can also now handle. So this GeoJSON should be able to but if you use the GeoJSON tile source, it should generate a output that is compatible with the. There is a prop, I think, but you can get. There is an example on the LoadersGL website. You can go there and play with different sources.
So it's be rendering via the GeoJSON layer, but with the binary data format. I assume it's not spitting out GeoJSON or.
So it's spitting out GeoJSON at the moment. So the dream is so right now it takes GeoJSON tables as input and spits out GeoJSON tiles, if you will. The dream is to be able to tile from binary tables into binary tiles. Then we can, if we can load the biggest table that the browser can possibly hold, right? Like, because it's so efficiently packed as a binary table, but we couldn't possibly render it because it's so big, right? It would bring the GPU to its knees, but then we can instead, put this, a future binary version of this tiler, on top of that table. And then, at any given time, we only have, a small subset of that table being rendered. So.
Yeah, well, certainly nice to start with GeoJSON because working with binary can be a nightmare when you're trying to put all the pieces together.
Yeah, this was based on, this is the map boxes. Vladimir Agafonkins has this GeoJSON VT. It's a brilliant library, but it's just incredibly difficult. It's completely untyped, and he uses the same fields for completely different things, and he adds like new fields and properties to the arrays he's using and so on. So it's so hard to follow that code, and refactoring it is a nightmare. So it's basically rewritten that code fully typed and clean, and now it should be very straightforward to add binary support if someone would like to do that. Kyle has continued to improve the Parquet WASM support, so been able to take advantage of some of that. That's slowly improving, and was able to do pretty cool combination of Markdown and React in the MDX in the website. So the little info window that's on top of each example that describes the example, it's kind of written in the Markdown, but it's kind of provided as a child into the demo example. It's pretty cool. When we have more time, I can show some code. Anyway, that's that. Next. I don't think we have anything on PyDeck. I still haven't had the time to organize a meeting with the PyWidget maintainer.
Haven't made too much more progress on this other than what's on here already, which is working on this 1.4 release where all the dependencies are basically being updated to just before Deck v9. So that'll be a solid Deck 8 release with all the other dependencies. Kepler 3 is still on Deck 8.9, so this will at least just be like a compatible version if we want it. And then v2 will includes some API breaking changes and then Deck 9 support and some other things. I was talking to Ib since last time, and I'm thinking about opening up a PR to Kepler to move some of those Kepler specific components over there to just see what that looks like. We'll talk about it more, I guess, when that's ready. But that's the movement there.
Yeah, so Kepler 3.1, I think I had a great meeting with Javier. He kind of reconfirmed Kato's interest in becoming more active as Kepler developers. That's great news. On Foursquare side, we are doing a lot of work on aligning with the latest Kepler, and once that's done, we're going to do a bunch of upstreaming. So a ton of plumbing, but also some features. I think that's all about.
Martin, I was going to ask you how the first few, I guess the first month of React Google Maps is going now that that's out.
So it didn't explode. Me and Ken both agreed that we weren't quite expecting like a hockey stick style growth and usage. It's steadily growing, and there are no major issues so far. So I'm quite happy with how that's going. I'm planning on adding support for the new 3D maps soon-ish.
Are you counting stars on GitHub?
I'm aware of them. We're slowly crossing the 1,000 mark, so
Nice.
also very happy with that.
You're becoming a stargazer. All right. Good work.
Thanks.
Let's see. Is there any? I don't think there's. Are there any movements on the community in the community repo to touch on?
I think I've been trying to direct people towards the editable layers from Nebula. There's still some questions and so on being filed there. Sometimes some even PRs. We have I think one thing that's a little bit unclear is how to publish these various components. So it's a little bit of a non-standard setup because we have like individual publishing, which is not what we usually do with OKR. So it might be good maybe to document that somewhere.
See, I think that's it as far as our different modules go. Are there any, Robin, is there anything from your end? I know that we've had we have like this open ticket right now that is kind of repo wide if we go for it. It's adding, what is it, DCO? Maybe this is something that we should talk about when Ben's on, because I know that he's actually been the one pointing.
Yeah, you can do DCO. So again, I'll have to take a look at that too. I haven't seen the ticket.
Oh, okay. A little bit hard to hear you, Robin, but I think we got that.
I know, and my headphones just went out too. So yeah. I'll follow up with you, yeah.
Okay.
So I have one topic that we were, Don and I and some people at Carter were discussing that we would like to if time allows, dedicate a bit of time, like later this year, to improving developer experience across the whole project. And we were discussing various ideas, but I just wanted to put it out there and see if someone had some particular pain points or something that they think could be done, just to make our lives more pleasant and make it easier for new contributors to join. So if anyone has any ideas, then shoot me a message or we can discuss now.
I think I mean, that's something I think about a lot as well. One of the things that I've been trying to do more of is to do more talks. I think like sometimes those in front of audiences are a good way to like see and put to the test almost like how you would explain how to do something. Like most recently, I put together a slide to answer some of the biggest questions I usually get from both users and contributors, which is kind of like where do these things go and how do they all kind of fit together across all of our different frameworks? And I was kind of curious actually what the group thought of this grouping here, where you're kind of grouping the frameworks by use case, and like how you might group these frameworks and explain them to an audience for the first time. But I think that's kind of that broad funnel of like, okay, how do I go from like my idea to actually putting it somewhere, I think is like one of the big developer experience questions that we probably could put some work into explaining a little better. Curious what you think. The way I would explain this slide is we have like React application and application frameworks. So if what you're trying to do is not do a lot of visualization work, but do UI development on top of visualization, then you could pull from these frameworks. And if you're trying to do base map stuff, we have and you're in React, we have these. If you're trying to do more pure visualization, we have a group of libraries very focused on that. And then we have all these toolkits that are designed to work really well, complementary with everything, but also can be used on their own if you've got, just a different need. And then at the bottom, of course, if you're trying to do a lot of graphics work, we have Luma.
Well, I mean, I think this framework architecture, I think you captured it quite well here. It's one of our biggest strengths, but also one of our weaknesses, right? Because I think for a new user, it can also be, a little bit overwhelming to have all these different pieces, and there's different ways to address it. I mean, one idea that has floated a couple of times is to create like a unified documentation, which today probably could be achieved by having the different repos as Git submodules into something like the WebGL module, and then pulling the docs from just having a docusource setup that references the docs structures in the different repos, and then we could create like one big searchable website where everything is. Now people have to go to like Deck and Luma and React Map.gl and so on and so forth. I mean, not everything. I don't think Kepler and Streetscape has the right structure of documentation, and I don't know if React, Google Maps, and Hubble and Flow Map, but most of these are now like on a docusource setup and very, very similar. So I'm not saying we should do that, but I think that's one thing that could make it more accessible. We did also get we had a working session on this in the last collaborator summit, and I think we talked to the community for about 30-40 minutes about it, right? So there were a few conclusions, I think, when we have to refresh my memory, but there were a few conclusions on.
Yeah, just looking at the slide, one thing that comes out is if I'm imagining sort of coming to this completely afresh, then it's maybe not entirely obvious which are the kind of sort of most kind of like publicly facing frameworks, and which are ones which are kind of only make sense in conjunction with another. So like an easy example is DeckGL community. Then if you're just going to go there and not spend any time reading the deck documentation, you're going to have a hard time. And like Luma, yes, can be used in and of itself. But like from these slides, it's not necessarily clear that like Deck is built on top of Luma and loaders, but then the React base maps are actually completely separate. Like you could basically skip everything that's below them and not learn a single thing about Deck or Luma for those. But it's quite nice to know that they work well together. So I don't know what would be a nice way of kind of visualizing this. Maybe some of the boxes could be a bit bigger to say like, hey, look at me, like I'm the one you should read first if you don't know which of these list of abstract sounding frameworks you should take a look at.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance there. It's like on the one hand, you could do the ultimate XKCD workflow of like, help you figure out which framework you're trying to use by asking 1,000 questions. To put it all into one visual, or maybe what it needs is really a few graphics to help explain this from a couple different perspectives, depending on what your perspective might be. Yeah, I'd be really curious to develop something like this further and play with that, because I agree with you. There's definitely those kinds of flaws in here where it's like you probably wouldn't want to use ProbeGL a lot of the time. But if it is something that you're looking for, then it's great to know it's there. And it's also
we're a visualization framework, so we could argue that rather than having like a static slide, you could have a web page where if you hover over one of these, then it kind of tells you what's the relation between them. So like DeckGL built on top of Luma and Loaders GL. If you go over Kepler, then it tells you what that's built on.
That's a cool idea. All right, we're almost at time here. Is there anything else for today?
One more thing on the chart here, which is really helpful to see. I think in some ways, like ambiguities in reading the chart may also just indicate ambiguities in how we position the ecosystem today in general. I think there's like an parallelism in terms of what things have the .gl suffix, or what things like having React map.gl being MapLibre, a Mapbox, or React Google Maps being just Google Maps is not a perfect parallelism in the names there. This is something to keep an eye on as we think about how to position MapLibre with it all. And I think similarly, like flowmap.gl being a top level package creates certain connotations compared to like the editable layers being in the community repo now. And there's a little bit of inconsistency there that maybe could be on the longer term roadmaps, but.
Yeah, and things like that are more a reflection of kind of the maintainer status of the library. Because with FlowMap, we have like a dedicated maintainer, and I don't think yet we have that dedicated one for editable. But I think if we did have that, the appetite there could change on how we maybe position that library.
That's a question. I think that's a good one to think about too, if we're encouraging interested contributors to contribute things to community, then having having an active contributor would then also be the criteria for escaping it as kind of I don't know, that might be a longer discussion, but yes, these are good questions.
We're getting short on time. I mean, One thing I think is interesting could be to explain all the ways that you can extend, deck. And so, for instance, deck can be extended with all the different loaders from loaders.gl. There's this is pluggable, right? You can plug in all the layer packs from deck.gl community. You can plug in the layers from flow map. You can plug in the base maps from React Map.gl and React Google Maps, and there's probably a story around. So while deck, in a sense, builds on loaders core, the real interest maybe is that there's all these loaders that you can use with deck and get support for, the vast majority of geospatial data that's out there.
Yeah, it's a really interesting angle. There's so many hooks that have been exposed in deck that allow you to extend it without having to contribute it back to the core now. I think that it is like a pretty unique thing when I talk about deck that I bring up. You could go and do something completely in private, and it works for you in so many ways. Just because there's so many hooks.
You create your own layers, your own loaders,
Use anything. And anything that we haven't exposed as a hook, I think there's also appetite to expose it. So that's a really interesting angle.
And shader modules, your own effects, All right.
All right. Have a good week.
Yep. See you. Bye-bye.